Do you guys remember that line that Meryl Streep said at one Oscars ceremony? I think it was back in 2016, maybe 2015. And she said, you know it, take your broken heart and go make art, or something like that. So this video is me doing that, taking my broken heart, and this is my art. So the thing is, though, like our hearts are always breaking over something, right? Like the whole point is to continuing on this journey of like continuing to open, and our hearts are going to always be broken over something if we have been sincere and we have been pure and we have had pure investments. And what this is really it's it's the natural breaking of our so-called projection, which, from my previous video, this is what we're continually constructing. Our minds are continually in the creative process of constructing what they are investing in, and that's a projection at its root. You're never not projecting, so there's never any, like, it's not about having a correct perception or an incorrect perception. Every perception is in part a projection, because of the mechanics of the way perception works. We always bring a cognitive overlay onto what we're doing. But that's not this discussion, because we just did that. What I wanted to talk about, I just finished a great conversation with a friend. Actually, she's an energy alchemist, and we recorded a podcast, and so this is going to be coming out as quickly as I could edit it, basically. But we were talking about a lot of this work of like processing and working through like our heavier emotions and releasing the stories that keep us stuck. So you guys have heard me talk a lot about the kinds of like habit loops we get stuck in. So we there's always like a biochemical component to all of these loops, right? And if you know the work of Joe Dispenza, whose book I reviewed back in like April, May, I think, we are stuck in these biochemical loops. We have certain thoughts, and they are linked with certain feelings. They create certain feeling states, which are in part biochemical states. Now, the strange thing is the way in which we can become kind of addicted to the particular biochemical composition of a certain emotional state. So this is really kind of a little bit dense and counterintuitive, because why would you get addicted to a painful state? It doesn't follow our usual model of like, it doesn't follow the behaviorist model of like pleasure and pain rewards and all of that. But you end up, on this theory anyway, you end up seeking out that particular biochemical composition again, and the way you'll do that is to seek out another experience that will give you that same biochemical response. So it's a little bit strange, actually. But that's not the part that I wanted to highlight. The part I wanted to talk about is the mental component, because it's always there too. There's a mental register to each of these. And what it is just this aspect of the overall projection that we have, that is our life. So we always have a so-called story that we're attaching to any given experience as a result of our own projection. And the story may not be a narrative, it may be another form of interpretation, but it's always some type of interpretation of our experience, of the meaning and significance of what just happened, for example. So maybe some kind of triggering event happens, or a tragic event, or anything that feels unfavorable, and you may catch yourself falling back into an interpretation like, oh, this always happens. Or maybe you say something like, kind of unconsciously, like you don't necessarily hear these words, but you end up getting to a place that's basically like, okay, well, now I'm giving up, or something similar, whatever it is that you might do. And or you may have told yourself, like, you may have decided unconsciously, okay, well, now I'm giving up. Like, the energy is just like, okay, now it's time to give up. And these are all based on interpretations that you're making. But I guess the crucial point here is that the interpretation or the story is what kind of drives the biochemical composition that you may have an addiction to on any given traumatic layer, let's say. And so, what that means by correlation is that you're kind of addicted to a certain story. You're addicted to a certain type of interpretation. So, it's more than just like, your interpretation can be more or less accurate, which is kind of tautological, of course. Your interpretation can be inaccurate. We know that. But here it's about the fact that you are addicted to a certain biochemical response that a given interpretation can give you. So, this is where it gets really counterintuitive and where you can actually make a real difference and kind of change your response and change your experience and prevent yourself from like re entering a really old loop that you get into. Because what is that? If you're still on that loop, that's literally reliving your past. It's living a past exchange again and again because you're using this same interpretation. So it's a real gift if you manage to kind of catch yourself in the act before you really engage that interpretation and send yourself back into the same spiral. You can sort of like let yourself pause and then kind of re-engage a new story, so a new interpretation. It doesn't even have to be very like complicated or anything like a narrative. It just means you can allow for a different possibility. Like you can bring awareness into the mechanics of your like trying to create this interpretation and just let yourself hold on to the fact that actually like I don't know, or this other possibility may be happening. This is, you're bringing awareness into the fact that you were about to engage an old interpretation. So you can do many things with that, right? Like you may do inner work to really trace the origins of that interpretation and then try to really excavate that and rewrite the story at that level. That's great. But all of this is what it means to keep an open heart. Because what would happen if you really let yourself sink back into that previous kind of interpretation from your past? You're really fixing your energy again. Like your energy would kind of like go there to die basically, and you would still have energy stuck kind of like magnetically on a certain interpretation that is actually from, maybe it was you were 13 years old. And so at the very least, if you can catch yourself in the act, then you won't lose your energy into one of these really old loops. And at minimum, you will be able to like continue to like, you can reroute the energy basically. Like you can keep it flowing, you can keep using it. It will continue to circulate rather than kind of like getting sucked back into some black hole from when you were age 13. But of course, you don't ever think about that on a conscious level because this, again, is about the biochemical response that your body is getting from a certain interpretation. This is why I said it's really counterintuitive. And that is also basically like this is one thread of what it means to self alchemize. So you're really bringing in so much awareness that you can be in control of your emotional biochemical response as well as your cognitive meaning making, so to speak. And because it all comes down to energy, what that means is that now you have that energy available to continue on, your higher purpose and to continue anchoring in the higher understanding and the higher types of guidance that you are able to remain open to now, because your energy isn't stuck. Your energy, you didn't magnetize it back into that really old interpretation. So, anyways, we talked about this a lot more on the podcast. So, I hope you will check that out. It's going to come out soon. I'm going to try to edit it right away. And yeah, it's just, I think it's fascinating to realize like how many different spiritual traditions and practices are basically all coming down to this same component in large part. I mean, there's other facets to emphasize, but I mean, even you can take like different types of psychotherapy. You can take like the work of Byron Katie. I mean, the work is really doing this same thing. It's basically like you're in charge of your interpretation, and can you find another interpretation for this? Yes, you can. And as my friend pointed out in the podcast, there's also like the Sedona method works this way too. So that one was new to me. I had heard of it, but I didn't really know the details of the Sedona method before. So we also talk about that. So yeah, I hope some of this has been insightful or has like re-inspired you remember something you already knew perhaps. But yeah, this is also all based in like Joe Dispenza's like particular paradigm for working with this. I only mention that not to like point out his work, but to point out the fact that this is like not a reductive schema because of the way these biochemical flows integrate with the mental interpretations we are actively bringing onto a situation. It's not reductive. Like this is still opening onto the world. It's opening onto our experience and the possibility of alternative experiences. So it's actually just like a really integrated loop. And I think it's important to be aware of like the full range, the full spectrum, or the full coherency of this loop on all levels, all energetic levels, from the dense physical through like very rare mental at higher levels. So I hope that helps. The next time you find yourself falling into like a lower emotional state, maybe it will happen tonight. Maybe there will be a big trigger or something else. Try to remember this and remember that, at the same time that you are coming up with a certain interpretation for what this means, how this is going to work in your life, or whatever it is, there's also a biochemical component to this that your body may kind of have it maybe work like an attractor basin basically, and your body wants to go there. It wants to go to a particular biochemical dynamic. So keep that in mind. Watch out for that. Try to recognize what it is, and then start thinking about this in terms of like breaking that addiction. It's fascinating. And what kind of other adjustments can you make to your interpretation of what just happened so that you can like create a different biochemical state for yourself? And what this will amount to, again, is keeping your heart open, keeping all of your energy in the present moment so that you can actually direct it in service for your higher purpose, your higher understanding, and your best experience.